Hushai fools Absalom. Absalom and all the leaders of the tribes of Israel agreed that Ahithophel had a good plan. Then Absalom said, "Bring in Hushai the Archite. Let's hear what he has to say." Hushai came in, and Absalom told him what Ahithophel had planned. Then Absalom said, "Should we do what he says? And if we shouldn't, can you come up with anything better?" Hushai said. "This time Ahithophel's advice isn't so good. You know that your father and his followers are real warriors. Now they are as fierce as a mother bear whose cubs have just been killed. Besides, your father has a lot of experience in fighting wars and he won't be spending the night with the others. He has probably already found a hiding place in a cave or somewhere else. As soon as anyone hears that some of your soldiers have been killed, everyone will think your whole army has been destroyed. Then even those who are as brave as a lion will lose their courage. All Israel knows what a great warrior your father is and what brave soldiers he has. My advice is to gather all the fighting men of Israel from the town of Dan in the north down to the town of Beersheba in the south. You will have more soldiers than there are grains of sand and on the seashore. Absalom, you should lead them yourself, and we will all go to fight David wherever he is. We will fall on him just as dew falls and covers the ground. He and all his soldiers will die. If they go into a walled town, we will put ropes around the town and drag it into the river. We won't leave even one small piece of a stone. Absalom and the others liked Hushai's plan better than Ahithophel's plan. This was because the Lord had decided to keep Ahithophel's plan from working and to cause trouble for Absalom. Jonathan and Ahimaaz tell David the news. Straight away, Hushai went to Zadok and Abiathar. He told them what advice Ahithophel had given to Absalom and to the leaders of Israel. Also told them about the advice he had given. Then he said, "Hurry, send someone to warn David not to spend the night on the side of the river. He must get across the river so he and the others won't be wiped out." Jonathan and Ahimaaz had been waiting at Rogel Spring because they did not want to be seen in Jerusalem. A servant girl went to the spring and gave them the message of David. But a young man saw them and went to tell Absalom. So Jonathan and Ahimaaz left and hurried to the house of a man who lived in Bahurim. Then they climbed down into a well in the courtyard. The man's wife put the cover on the well and poured grain on top of it so the well could not be seen. Absalom's soldiers came to the woman and demanded, "Where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan?" The woman answered, "They went across the stream." The soldiers went off to look for the two men, but when they did not find the men, they went back to Jerusalem. After the soldiers had gone, Jonathan and Ahimaaz climbed out of the well. They went to David and said, "Hurry, get ready to cross the river." Then they told him about Ahithophel's plan. David and the others got ready and started crossing the river Jordan. By sunrise, all of them were on the other side. Ahithophel kills himself. When Ahithophel saw that Absalom and the leaders of Israel were not going to follow his advice, he had saddled his donkey and rode back to his home in Gilo. He told his family and servants what to do. Then he hanged himself, and they buried him in his family's burial place. Absalom puts Amasa in charge of the army. David went to the town of Mahanaim, and Absalom crossed the river Jordan with the army of Israel. Absalom put Amasa in Joab's place as commander of the army. Amasa's father was Ithra from the family of Ishmael, and his mother was Abigail, the daughter of Nahash and the sister of Joab's mother, Zeruiah. The Israelites under Absalom's command set up camp in the region of Gilead. Friends bring supplies to David. After David came to the town of Mahanaim, Shobi, the son of Nahash, came from Rabbah in Ammon. Machir, the son of Amiel, came from Lo Debar, and Barzillai the Gileadite came from Rogelim. Here is a list of what they brought: sleeping mats, blankets, bowls, pottery jars, wheat, barley, flour, roasted grain, beans, lentils, honey, yogurt, sheep, and cheese. They brought the food for David and the others because they knew that everyone would be hungry, tired, and thirsty from being out in the desert. Chapter 18. David gets ready for battle. David divided his soldiers into groups of 100 and groups of 1,000. Then he chose officers to be in command of each group. He set out one-third of his army under the command of Joab, another third under the command of Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, and the rest under the command of Ittai from Gath. He told the soldiers, "I'm going into battle with you." But the soldiers said, "No, don't go into battle with us. It won't matter to our enemies if they make us all run away, or even if they kill half of us. But you are worth 10,000 of us. It would be better for you to stay in town and send help if we need it." David said, "All right, if you think I should." Then, in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, he said, "Joab, Abishai, Ittai, for my sake, be sure that Absalom comes back unharmed." David stood beside the town gate as his army marched past in groups of 100 and in groups of 1,000. Joab killed Absalom. The war with Israel took place in Ephraim forest. Battles were being fought all over the forest, and David's soldiers were winning. 20,000 soldiers were killed that day, and more of them died from the dangers of the forest than from the fighting itself. Absalom was riding his mule under a huge tree when his head caught in the branches. The mule ran off and left Absalom hanging in mid-air. Some of David's soldiers happened to pass by, and one of them went and told Joab, "I saw Absalom hanging in a tree." Joab said, "You saw Absalom? Why didn't you kill him? I would have given you 10 pieces of silver and a special belt." The man answered, "Even if you paid me 1,000 pieces of silver here and now, I still wouldn't touch the king's son. We all had heard King David tell you and Abishai and Ittai not to harm Absalom. He always finds out what's going on. I would have been risking my life to kill Absalom because you would have let me take the blame." Joab said, "I'm not going to waste any more time on you." Absalom was still alive. So Joab took 3 spears and stuck them through Absalom's chest. 10 of Joab's bodyguards came over and finished him off. Then Joab blew a trumpet to signal his troops to stop chasing Israel's soldiers. They threw Absalom's body into a deep pit in the forest and put a big pile of rocks over it. Meanwhile, the people of Israel had all run back to their own homes. When Absalom was alive, he had set up a stone monument for himself in King's Valley. He explained, "I don't have any sons to keep my name alive." He called it Absalom's monument, and that is the name it still has today. Ahimaaz wants to tell David. Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said, "Joab, let me run and tell King David that the Lord has rescued him from his enemies." Joab answered, "You are not the one to tell the king that his son is dead. You can take him a message some other time, but not today." Someone from Ethiopia was standing there, and Joab told him, "Go and tell the king what you have seen." The man knelt down in front of Joab and then got up and started running. Ahimaaz spoke to Joab again. "No matter what happens, I still want to run. And besides, the Ethiopian has already left." Joab said, "Why should you run? You won't get a reward for the news you have. I'll run no matter what." Ahimaaz insisted. "All right then, run," Joab said. Ahimaaz took the road through the Jordan Valley and outran the Ethiopian. Meanwhile, David was sitting between the inner and outer gates. In the city wall, one of his soldiers was watching from the roof of the gate tower. He saw a man running towards the town and shouted down to tell David. Whereas if he had alone, he must have some news. The runner was getting closer when the soldier saw someone else running. He shouted down to the gate, "Look, there's another runner. He must have some news too." The soldier on the roof shouted, "The first one runs just like Ahimaaz, son of Zadok." This time David said, "He's a good man. He must have some good news." Ahimaaz called out, "We won. We won." Then he bowed low to David and said, "Your Majesty, praise the Lord your God. He has given you victory over your enemies." "Is my son Absalom all right?" David asked. Ahimaaz said, "When Joab sent your personal servant and me, I saw no crowd, but I don't know what it was all about." David told him, "Stand over there and wait." Ahimaaz went over and stood there. The Tifan came and said, "Your Majesty, today I have good news. The Lord has rescued you from all your enemies." "Is my son Absalom all right?" David asked. The Ethiopian replied, "I wish that all your Majesty's enemies and everyone who tries to harm you would end up like him." David cries for Absalom. David started trembling. Then he went up to the room above the city gate to cry. As he went, he kept saying, "My son Absalom, my son Absalom, my son Absalom. I wish I could have died instead of you, Absalom, my son, my son."